All right, let's talk about that moment. That moment when you just lose it, when some kind of stress hits, and suddenly you're having this huge emotional reaction. Today, we are going to dive into why that happens and, way more importantly, how you can get back in the driver's seat of your own brain.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. Some little thing, some minor frustration just boils over, you snap, and then boom, instant regret. You're just standing there wondering, where in the world did that come from? Well, that outburst actually has a name, and its origin is buried deep inside your brain. It's called an emotional hijack, and that's exactly what it is. Think of it like your brain's ancient built-in alarm system just going wild before the logical, modern part of your brain even has a chance to ask, hey, what's going on? And the guy who gave it its famous name is the psychologist Daniel Goleman. He called it the amygdala hijack. Now, your amygdala, it's this little almond-shaped part of your brain, and its job is to be your emotional watchdog. When it even thinks it senses a threat, whether it's real or just perceived, it can sound the alarm and literally hijack your entire response system. So how does this hijack happen so ridiculously fast? Well, it's all thanks to this neural shortcut in your brain called the low road. Information comes in from your senses, hits a little relay station called the thalamus, and instead of taking the slow, scenic route to your thinking brain, it just zips directly to the amygdala. The amygdala then basically screams, "Threat!" and triggers your body's fight or flight response in milliseconds. It's built for speed, not accuracy. And here's the most crucial part of the hijack. It's what it bypasses, your prefrontal cortex. You can think of your prefrontal cortex, or PFC, as the CEO of your brain. It's in charge of logic, good judgment, impulse control, all the smart stuff. During a hijack, the CEO gets locked out of the boardroom, and the amygdala, let's call it the panic security guard, is suddenly in charge of the entire company. And you can imagine how well that goes.
Do any of these feel familiar? That sudden rush of anger or fear. Your heart starts pounding, you get sweaty palms. Those are the classic signs. It's your body's alarm system in full swing. And that feeling of regret or embarrassment that hits you later? Yeah, that's your brain's CEO, the prefrontal cortex, finally getting the door unlocked, walking back into the office, and seeing the absolute mess the security guard made while they were in charge.
Okay, so it sounds like we're just hardwired for these hijacks, right? Like we're doomed. But here is the most powerful part of this whole story. We have a choice. We don't have to just react automatically. We can actually learn to respond thoughtfully. See, our brain can take two totally different paths in these moments. Reacting is that bottom-up path. It's fast, it's automatic, and it's driven by that emotional amygdala. But then there's responding. That's the top-down path. It's slower, it's intentional, and it's guided by our rational prefrontal cortex. So when we react, we're basically letting that low road win. We're letting that primitive, bottom-up process take complete control. It's the brain on autopilot, running an ancient survival program. That might have been great for facing a saber-toothed tiger, but it's not so great for dealing with a frustrating email or someone cutting you off in traffic. The alternative, then, is to respond, and this is key. It is not an instinct, it is a skill. It's a conscious choice to hit pause, engage that high road, and give your prefrontal cortex, your inner CEO, just a moment to catch up, look at the situation, and make a much, much better decision. This is how we move from raw instinct to thoughtful intention. So how do we actually do this? How do we build that muscle of responding instead of just reacting? Well, let's open up the toolkit. We're going to look at some really practical strategies, both for the heat of the moment and for building long-term resilience. So how long do you need to stop a hijack in its tracks? You might be surprised. Sometimes it's just 6 seconds. Seriously? Research suggests that's about how long it takes for the initial flood of those stress chemicals, like adrenaline, to start fading away. That tiny pause can be just enough time for your thinking brain to wrestle back control from your emotional brain. So how do you use those 6 seconds? Here's a super simple 3-step process. First, name it. Just say to yourself, I am feeling angry, or I am feeling overwhelmed. That simple act actually engages your thinking brain. Second, breathe. Just one slow, deep breath sends a signal to your nervous system that you're not in a life or death situation. And third, step away. If you can, just create a little physical space. Walk into another room. It helps interrupt the trigger's power over you. Now, beyond the heat of the moment, there are 2 really powerful long-term strategies. On one side, you have reappraisal. This is where you actively try to change the story you're telling yourself about what's happening. On the other side, you have acceptance. Here, instead of changing the story, you just allow the feeling to be there, observing it without judging it. They're different approaches, but both are incredibly effective at building that resilience muscle over time. And look, building this resilience isn't just about having tactics for when things go wrong. It's also about cultivating these long-term habits. Things like building strong friendships, developing a growth mindset where you see challenges as opportunities, practicing real self-care, and learning to reframe negative thoughts. All of this stuff acts like preventative maintenance, making you way less likely to get hijacked in the first place. When you start putting all these pieces together, the in-the-moment tactics and the long-term habits, you're not just preventing a few outbursts, you are building something so much more profound and so much more powerful. You're building genuine emotional resilience. Emotional resilience, it's not about being a robot or being immune to stress. It's the exact opposite, really. It's the ability to feel all the tough stuff, to navigate adversity, and to bounce back effectively. This is the skill that literally improves your relationships, boosts your career. It is the ultimate tool for thriving in a pretty uncertain world. I want to leave you with this really beautiful thought from Helen Keller. The challenges, the stress, the suffering, that stuff is always going to be there. But our capacity to meet it, to adapt to it, and to grow from it is just as real and honestly just as powerful. So the next time you feel that heat rising, that internal alarm bell starting to ring, just remember, you have a choice. That tiny little gap between the trigger and your action, that's where all your power lies. The only question is, are you going to react or are you going to respond?